All right, so we are going to use either a bottle like this that has the straight walls on it, or we're going to use a bottle like this that has the Coke type bottle of, I guess this one's Sprite with the curves on it. Now, when doing this, either one can work. Big thing you have to remember, the nozzle on it, the opening of the bottle, is going to be the bottom of your rocket. All right, now if you remember in the movie, when Homer's talking about, he's explaining the nozzle at science fair, he talks about the convergent and divergent section of the nozzle. And what happens in here, in the bottle is going to be filled up with half water, half compressed air. And what ends up making the propulsion is the compressed air. A lot of people think the compressed air is doing it. It's really not the compressed air. It's the fact that the compressed air is pushing the water out of the bottle really fast. And if you see how wide the bottle is up here, when the water is going through there, it starts coming down into this smaller section, right, where it's converging. And as it does, the velocity of it speeds up. And if you've ever been on a river, anyone ever go canoeing or kayaking on a river, you know when the river's wider, it slows down, and when it gets narrow, it speeds up. All right, so the same thing is what's happening in here. But again, moral of the whole story, this is the bottom of your rocket. You've got to keep it that way. So when you're designing your stabilizers, that you don't design them upside down. Now, when it comes to the two bottles, this bottle, with the straight sides, is going to be easier for today's step. All right, so like the step we're doing today is definitely going to be easier. This one will be more complicated. However, you can make the argument that the bottle's a little bit more stable and a little more sturdy because of the curves and stuff in it. So in the end, that might be an asset to your rocket. So who knows? But I will show you how to use either one. Now, I will start with this one, as like I said, this is the tougher one for today. Now, when you're doing this, you need to keep everything nice and secure. So I'm going to, just for now, I'm going to tape my paper down onto the table here. If you're working with a partner, your partner could just hold it. All right. Now, there it is. You're going to hold your bottle on. You got to keep it still. And the trick is you have to keep your pencil straight up and down. If the angle of your pencil changes when you're doing this, you're not going to get a good line. Now, my line came out very light, and that's okay. I mean, I could see it. I know it doesn't show on the camera too well. That's not good. The other thing you can do is you can take a 2-inch roll of tape. All right, you could either use a 2-inch roll of masking tape or a 2-inch roll of packing tape. And if you were to put your pencil in like this, do you notice how just a very little bit of the pencil is popping out? Right? What you then can do, and I'll do this one more time, hold your bottle, and then doing that, it holds your pencil at a nice consistent angle. Okay, so either way works. Now, on your bottle, on the curved section up over here, I just want you to make a mark where the curve of it stops. So from here, it kind of starts going, in that flatter spot. When you're designing your stabilizer, you cannot design in this area. Similarly up here, we're going to make a mark as it goes from this like flatter high part, starts sloping down. You cannot design your stabilizer here. So the design needs to stay between those two marks. Okay? And if I transfer those back onto my drawing here, I'll just get that line back up. That puts a mark about here and a mark about here. So that is the area that we have to work with. All right? Now, just backing up for a second, if I were to use this straight-sided bottle, again, I could do the same thing of just tracing it, but I will tell you there's a little secret here. It's not very secretive. The side of this is just straight, so you could just take a ruler and just draw yourself a line. So if on here, I were to identify my two spots, like I'm going to work between here and here, I could just take the ruler. Doesn't matter if you use inches or centimeters, and you could just measure. It's about 15 centimeters. So then I could just go down here and I could just draw a 15-centimeter line, and I could work off of that instead of doing the tracing. All right, that's why I said the straight-sided bottle is easier for today. Okay, I will though continue working with the curved-sided bottle just so you guys can see how to do it. Now at this point, I want you to then go on your Chromebook. All right, you're going to go on the Chromebook and do a little bit of research on stabilizer designs. All right, there are a whole bunch out there. When you find them, I want you to think about you and who you are as a builder. If you're someone who likes to build and you like to make things, cut things out, definitely go for a more complicated design. Maybe put a curve in it. If you're not so much into building and you feel like you're not the best at cutting and you kind of want to take it just more of the safe approach, keep the straight sides, keep it simpler. All right, don't go crazy with it. So for this, I'm just going to make kind of a nice little bit of a trapezoid kind of deal going. All right, so I'm just going to draw this in. And now I'm maximizing the space between those two marks. You can go a little bit smaller if you like. All right, and that would be fine. And finally, we just need to cut the shape out. Now, before I do totally cut it out, I am just going to glue it onto a piece of card stock. I'm just going to use an old folder here. So I'm going to flip this over. Now, this stabilizer here is not actually a stabilizer that's going to go onto our rocket. This is going to be the template for our stabilizers. Stabilizers are going to be actually made out of foam core. All right, so this is just our template. Now, when you do this, I'll be honest with you, there is a reality that for some people, you're going to have to do this more than once because you need to get a nice tight fit to the bottle. So when we go to glue it onto the bottle next week, if it's not a nice tight fit, it's not going to glue on very well. And then when you're launching your rocket, it's going to, obviously they're going to break off. Now the part on the curve that I traced, you need to make sure that you cut that nice and accurately because that's what's going to give you that nice tight fit. Here we go. Almost there. Now when you get to this part, you know, you're thinking you're done. In reality though, you might not be depending on how it fits. So we're going to take this and I'm going to fit this on. So if I fit that on, that fits pretty well. Honestly, there's a bit of a gap up in like where my pointer finger is pointing. There's a bit of a gap in there, which I'm not really loving. So I think if I actually just take a little bit off of here, that might solve it. That definitely looks better. All right, so you see how it's fitting in there nice and tight? You guys see how it fits in there nice and tight? If you were to do it, and this was just a random piece that I cut just to show you. So if this was my stabilizer, all right, and if I go to hold it up there, like, do you see how like there's massive gaps in there? Obviously, this is obviously exaggerating, but if you have massive gaps with your stabilizer, you definitely need to recut it because it's not going to glue on well. All right, so just a quick review here then. So what you're going to do on either the straight side or the curved bottom, you're going to put your two marks on, right, where those curves start. You're kind of looking for that upper part of the bottle, not the slope. Slope down here you can't design, slope over here you can't design. So you make your two marks. You're going to transfer your marks onto the graph paper. And again, feel free to tape it down because as you're doing this, if this thing's moving around, it's going to make it way harder to do. All right, you're then going to use a pencil. If you want, use the 2-inch roll of tape and trace it. Transfer your marks over. Go on your Chromebook. Look up some stabilizer designs. When you find one you like, you're going to design your stabilizer. After you do that, glue it onto some oak tag. And with the oak tag, you definitely can share pieces because they're quite large. All right? Share a piece of oak tag, get it glued on, cut it out, test fit it, make sure it fits nice. And if you need to, recut it. That's that. So guys, get working.